India, an exceptional piece of land, dynamic and restless, natural forces persistently at work, and landforms signifying change as the only constant, thus leaving unmistakable signature of geological mysteries ingrained in a natural setting. One of such mysteries breathes around Nalanda, Gaya and Jehanabad district in the state of Bihar in eastern India. The nature has given space to a rich geological succession stamped in the geological time scale spanning millions of years. The civilization followed later and gave way for equally rich archaeological heritage with its foundation on geological expressions, and they, in unison, enrich the present as an inseparable identity. The geologists, having identified the vast opportunities of the sector, are continuously making an effort to unravel the unsullied evidences of how the two fast-developing uncanny disciplines are crafting opportunities for geotourism aficionados. Rarely one finds a geological setting so suitably placed in the historical domain as this sector. It is undoubtedly the hub of tourists from all parts of the country and globe, and owing to its geoarchaeological significance, adds to it an unparalleled flavor, giving it the well-deserved aesthetic value and a distinction of an important geotourism center. Geotourism offers a new form of sustainable tourist attraction, which is more encompassing than the previous niche forms of tourism. With more people than ever visiting natural areas worldwide, the cumulative impacts of visitors on geological sites is increasing manifold. The Rajgir Hills and the surrounding peneplain surfaces possess tremendous geoarchaeological potential. Geotourism is the engine driving the core activities of conservation, education and sustainable development in geo-environment. So welcome to the Geotourism Circuit of Bihar, where we shall be taking you through multitude of geological and archaeological artifacts well preserved in a natural setting in this historically rich state of Bihar. The majestic northeast-southwest trending Rajgir Hills is home to rich geoarchaeological treasure of the land called Rajgriha. Geologically, the area lies to the northern fringe of the Chota Nagpur Gneiss complex, which is understood as a vast east-northeast, west-southwest, trending, high-grade metamorphic terrain in the eastern part of the central Indian tectonic zone. The geology at the northern margin of CGC comprises Bihar Mica Belt, Munger Group, Rajgir-Gaya sub-basins and the Barabar-Nagarjuni magmatic complex. Based on the lithological and structural characteristics, Munger and Rajgir-Gaya metasediments were correlated with the rocks of the Mahakoshal group of the Son-Narmada Graben of central India, according to Das in 1967 and Ghosh and Mukherjee in 2000. Later in 2011, Chatterjee and Ghosh were of the opinion that the East Patna fault and its conjugate, the Munger-Saharsa Ridge fault, together define a graben, which is probably a northeastward extension of the Son-Narmada Graben. Francis Buchanan was the first to explore the ruins at Baragaon, which is now the celebrated archaeological site of Nalanda. He found a number of Buddhist images at site, which reminded him of Bodh Gaya. The digging at Nalanda brought out shrines, several rock sculptures, votive stupas and other antiquities. Paintings depicting human figurines, floral designs were also discovered. Nalanda was an ancient Mahavihara, a large and revered Buddhist monastery in the ancient kingdom of Magadha, which is now called Bihar. It is characterized as one of India's early universities. At its peak, the school attracted scholars and students from near and far, with some traveling from China, Korea and Central Asia. Huensang, the Chinese pilgrim value travelogue, translated later by scholars that followed, gives special significance to the place.
History of Nalanda goes back to the 6th century BC to the time of Mahavir and Buddha. It was the birth and nirvana place of Sariput, a famous disciple of Buddha, but the place rose into prominence in the 5th century CE when a great monastic cum educational center in form of organized university was founded by Kumargupta I. What adds novelty to this erstwhile archaeological sector is the enriching geological heritage which prevails alongside, thus giving it a valued stature of geotourism.
There are several hot springs near Rajgir which have a geological origin and are a tourist delight. At the foot of the Vaibhava hill, a staircase leads up to the various temples. Separate bathing places are earmarked for men and women, and the water comes through spouts from Saptadhara, the 7 streams believed to find their source behind the Saptani caves up in the hills. It is postulated that the percolating meteoric water get heated on meeting superheated steam and carbon dioxide from some younger source, thus accounting for the rise in temperature and acidity.
The base of the Rajgir Jetia hills is dotted with number of hot springs which bear immense geological significance. Here the rocks, mainly quartzites, are tightly folded and are traversed by east-northeast, west-southwest faults. The meteoric water, through various fractures and joints, percolates into the ground and on meeting some heated juvenile source, resurfaces in the form of natural springs. Tapovan, Agnikund and Brahmakund are just a few of them, and Brahmakund, where we are standing, holds a lot of religious and cultural significance. Rajgir has thus come up as a major health and winter resort due to its natural warm water ponds. These ponds are said to contain medicinal properties which help to cure many skin ailments and is a perpetual source of attraction for millions of devotees thronging the sector.
The great Jain sage Vaira Devaji got the twin caves constructed around 4th century AD, meant for meditation. These caves were believed to be King Bimbisara's treasury, hence they were also known as Swarn Bhandar. The eastern cave has 2-story height with statues of Jain Arhals installed in it. A fine image of Lord Vishnu, recovered from the cave, has been installed in Archaeological Museum at Nalanda.
If we may take a look at the design or the architecture of this excavation, one can make a clear understanding looking at the face of this excavation that it has been designed during ancient times in the same fashion that we design a horseshoe tunnel during this time. Now, there is a well-defined crown, there is a spring level and there is an invert or the floor level. Now, as you can see, it is very difficult to imagine such a huge structure within fractured or jointed quartzite which exists outside, but they have still found out a massive body which is absolutely free of such abnormality as far as rock is concerned. Now there is an oblique joint which is appearing on the face of the log, but it has been retreated and it has withstood the length of time to exist today, what we can see as a complete geological and architectural marvel.
The chariot mark within Philides near Rajgir has a mythological essence to it with plausible geological explanation. The chariot mark credence to the tales and local belief that they were burnt into the rock by speed and power of Lord Krishna's chariot when he entered the city of Rajgir during epic Mahabharata times.
The chariot mark and associated inscriptions are worth a visit for the peculiarity of the phenomenon. 2 parallel furrows cut deep into ferruginous phyllite quartzite rock sequence for about 30 feet. These parallel set of joints are separated by a joint spacing of 5 feet and have a long broken continuity in the region. Numerous cubic voids of sulfides are observed throughout this outcrop with size ranging from 1 mm to 5 mm. Bounding marks along the groups are observed which indicates possible interference of anthropogenic activities such as mineral find during ancient time.
The Ghora Katora Lake, situated in the picturesque core of antiformal closure of large F1 fold, is another geological spectacle in Rajgir. Flanked by quartzite hill sequence, which converge into the nose of anticline, preserves in its core a pondage on the phylitic sequence. A continuous and bastion dry fortification wall with a circuit of about 40 kilometers runs over the top of flanks of the hill occupied by quartzite, and there are subsidiary partition walls, defensive in character, cutting across the valley. In the widest part of the valley, there is also an inner fortification, 8 km in perimeter, of heaped up earth and rubble, at places in ruins, but at places rising up to 10 meters in height.
Founded largely in hard and competent quartzites, mainly for the protection purposes, and it provides a natural fortified look to the Rajgir, and it is a beautiful signature of human effort during those times.
The recently reported volcano sedimentary sequence in juxtaposition with Rajgir meta sediments is extended over a known 40-kilometer aerial distance from Bathani to Churi Jagannathpur in Gaya district of Bihar.
So the occurrence of volcano-sedimentary sequence of Bathani in juxtaposition with the Rajgir metasediments presents the Munger-Rajgir belt in an entirely novel lithostratigraphic perspective. Emplacement of diverse felsic and mafic rocks together testifies for a multi-stage and a multi-source magmatism in the area. The presence of pillow lavas marks the eruption of these rocks in subaqueous environment.
The central lithodomain is essentially represented by volcanic rocks, namely basalt, rhyolite, andesite, tuff, and little amount of chemogenic BIF and carbonate. Volcanic rocks of central domain display megascopic as well as microscopic evidences to speculate the commingling and mixing of mafic and felsic magmas, ultimately forming hybrid rock like basaltic andesite and andesite. The association of pillow lava, rhyolite, explosive fragments and chemogenic sediments suggest eruption of mafic felsic magmas and ejection of pyroclast in subaqueous condition. Subaqueous emplacement of mafic lavas associated with pyroclast is a characteristic feature of subduction.
The pillow basalt exposed in Mahadev Biga has the requisite attributes and eligibility criteria to qualify as a national geological monument, and an initiative has been taken in that direction.
In the district of Gaya also lies an interesting geotourism destination at Gehlor, the native village of Dasrath Manjhi, the man who realized a near impossible task to excavate a mountain of quartzite and phyllite in an untiring effort for 22 long years with hammer, chisel and homemade tools, and make way to the other side of the mountain, which otherwise required a longer path of several kilometers to avail basic amenities of life. It is a glorifying example of how will can give way to something impossible. In the pursuit, he developed all that was required to achieve the ominous task. Hurt profusely by the sudden death of his beloved wife while maneuvering the mountain, he dedicated this Herculean feat to his late wife. We salute the mountain man. The meta-sedimentary sequence of quartzite and phyllite are exposed along this section. Fault breccia as manifestation of brittle faulting is observed along the section, with associated slicken sites, which is a not-to-be-missed feature for those visiting the place.
Here quartzite is jointed, compact and silicified in nature and exhibit the foliation trending north 60 east, dipping southeast with a moderate dipping of 55 degree. Mineralogically, they are composed of quartz, feldspar, ceresite, muscovite and opaque ore minerals. Ceresite and muscovite occurs in the form of small aspects and needles, and they have marked preferred orientation.
The Barabar and Nagarjuni hills hosting man-made caves are the glorifying examples of Indian rock cut architecture and one of its kind in the country. The caves have been fashioned with the finest architecture prevailing during those times and carry antiquities, relics and inscriptions of the rich historical past engraved in the country rock. They date back to Mauryan Empire, some with Ashokan inscriptions located in the Makhdumpur region of Jahanabad district, 24 km north of Gaya. Housed in the twin hills of Barabar with 4 caves and Nagarjuni having 3 caves, they are magnificent excavations within massive granite.
From the geological perspective, it is observed that special care was taken to locate these caves within a massive granite, which are free of any oblique or basal joints. It is a difficult proposition, but this approach helped these caves to remain intact for a length of time it has seen. The granite suite of rocks in Barabar is represented by coarse grain homogeneous biotite granite, medium grain hornblende granite, and porphyritic biotite granite. Apart from these granite, a highly silicified, sheared, and a very fine grain granite is also recorded in the northern part of this Barabar hill, which corresponds with a prominent regional shear zone along northeast-southwest trend.
Most caves at Barabar consist of two chambers carved entirely out of granite with a highly polished internal surface, an exciting echo effect. The first chamber was meant for worshippers to congregate in a large rectangular hall, and the second, a small circular domed chamber for worship. This inner chamber probably had a small stupa-like structure at some point, though they are now empty. The character of the inscription is triangular-headed and have the paleographical feature seen in the records of Mahanadi region. Architecturally, Loma Rishi cave is the most attractive cave, but it does not have any donative Ashokan inscription. The magmatic suite of rocks exposed at Barabar Mahadev Nagarjuni hill ranges are referred as Barabar Nagarjuni Magmatic Complex. Geologically, the area exposes two distinct suite of rocks, namely gabbro-anorthosite suite and the granitic suite of rocks. Small pods and lenses of gabbro-anorthosite occur as enclaves within the granitoid country rock. Titaniferous magnetite ore bodies are associated with anorthosite pockets or as a large pocket within porphyritic biotite granite. The occurrences at Barabar and Sapneri have triggered positive hopes of mineralization within a layered complex and is being thoroughly investigated by Geological Survey of India, State Unit Bihar.
Vanadiferous ilmenomagnetite occurs in association with gabbro-anorthosite suite of rocks and also within a granite as a massive xenolith. Preliminary exploration by GSI Patna reveals a resource of 0.7 million tons of ore having 32.5% iron, 11.2% titanium dioxide and 0.7% vanadium pentoxide within an area of 0.8 square kilometer.
The rock engravings in granite at Kawadol are some of the best preserved arts of those times. The deities, their lifestyle, culture, religion, worship, and much more reflect the sculpture's brilliance in depicting stories in stones. Kawadol is detached from the rest of Barabar Hills to the southwest. A continuous stretch of 1.5 km along the periphery of the granite hill exhibits numerous rock carvings and ruined stupas. The statue of Lord Buddha in basalt and the pillars during the premises are rich remnants of the bygone era.
Geotourism component around Gaya and Rajgir sustains and enhances the identity of its historically important place along with its geological environments, culture, aesthetics, heritage and the well-being of its residents. Geologists of Geological Survey of India have been studying the evidences of its geological history of the subcontinent since the mid-18th century. But the vistas are so infinite that every new page of history is written before the ink of the last page has been dried out.
These are rich historical antiquities that are the reflection of the predominance of Buddhism and Jainism religion and adds significantly to the geo-archaeological importance of the place. Turning the pages of history, the inquirers have looked for facts and have been delivered with fables. They have looked for historic lights and they unraveled poetic coruscations, but the truths that have been buried in times have been slowly unleashed with a concerted effort. This documentary is merely a window to introduce this valued tourist destination to this facet provided by the science of geology, which is deeply ingrained in its soul. Earth is ancient now, but she keeps a record of all that has happened with time. In time, off time, she says little and in a language which people have only been able to understand partially. It is at this juncture that a geologist attempts to study the earth at a point where an archaeologist leaves it and he takes it further back into remote antiquity. This home away from home offers all of that in a well-knit package. Come, experience this beautiful land of Magadh.